The March 16 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of the City of Longview is now called to order. Welcome, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be meeting in person for the first time in a year. We're glad you're here. Commissioner Murray will lead us in the invocation. Please stand.
Dear Father, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to meet in person and to help our city grow. Thank you for this beautiful day. May all that we do here today be to your glory. In Christ's holy name, amen.
Amen. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Our first item of business is approval of the January 19 minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at them, and are there any corrections?
Move for approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no, please. Motion carries. Thank you. We have now reached the citizen comment portion of our meeting. This portion of citizen comment are comments that are made other than the public hearing items that we have on the agenda tonight. If you wish to speak on an item that's on the agenda, please wait until that time to speak. Please begin by stating your name and address for the public record. Is there anyone that would like to make a citizen comment at this time? If so, please come to the microphone and give your name and address. Seeing none, we'll move forward to the regular agenda. The purpose of this meeting is to hear all pertinent testimony of those in support of and in opposition to the applications before the Commission. Tonight is the first of two public hearings required to approve a change in zoning. The Commission also considers plats. The procedure for public hearing items to be followed tonight will be: the public hearing will be opened and testimony will be heard in the following order. First from staff, second from the applicant, and third from the general public, and that would include those in support of and in opposition to the request. If you're part of a large group with a common interest, we ask that you appoint a spokesperson rather than have each individual restate the same information. When addressing the Commission, please begin by stating your name and address and try to limit your comments to 5 minutes. When all sides have spoken, the public hearing on the matter will be closed and no further public discussion will be entertained. After each public hearing is closed, the Commission will vote on the request. Zoning request and the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation will go forward to the second public hearing, which will be conducted by the City Council on April 8th. Our first item is regular agenda item A, and Angela will introduce it.
Thank you, Chairperson Parsley. This is a public hearing where we hope to consider application SW21-01 Eastwood Edition, filed by Travis Crafton, for a subdivision waiver to the City of Longview UDC Subdivision Regulations, Article E, Section 1, Subsection 1.10D, which requires that single-family subdivisions with a single point of access to a collector, minor arterial street, or principal arterial shall not be designated to serve more than 60 dwelling units, and secondary emergency vehicle access shall be provided in accordance with the fire code for approximately 20.4 acres of abstract 262 Adjourn survey, tract 21-05, section 2, located in the Eastwood subdivision north of Garner Lane and at the end of Chisholm Trail. Staff comments. The applicant is requesting a subdivision waiver, which states that single-family subdivisions with a single point of access shall not be designated to serve more than 60 lots or 60 dwelling units, and they will have secondary emergency access provided in accordance with the fire code. The fire code requires that there are two fire access roads that are required. They shall be placed a distance apart equal to not less than 1/2 the length of the maximum overall diagonal dimension of the lot or area to be served, measured in a straight line between accesses. A little bit of history about this subdivision. In May of 1994, the Planning and Zoning Commission considered a preliminary plat of the Eastwood subdivision, Big Woods, it was called Big Woods subdivision at that time, for 69 lots. The commission actually recommended denial because a second point of access was not provided. In June of the same year, Planning and Zoning Commission considered the request again for a preliminary plat. However, the subdivision name changed to Eastwood. The applicant provided two different scenarios. Scenario A was to provide an alleyway as a secondary access onto Garner instead of a street. And scenario B was to propose a stub-out street to be constructed to the west property line for future connection to Clayton Lane. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the preliminary plat with the stipulation that only one street be provided off of Garner Lane and that second means of access be provided to Clayton Lane. This development should only be limited to 25 lots if the second means of access cannot be provided. City Council approved the development with the same stipulations. The end of that year, in November of '94, the Planning and Zoning Commission again considered this request. This time, the final request was for 68 lots with an alleyway onto Garner Lane. Also, the alleyway would be moved farther north from the intersection. The developer would also provide a stub out to the west property line so that Clayton Lane could be tied into this subdivision in the future. The request was approved with these stipulations. The stipulations were to provide an appropriate transition from Garner Lane to the proposed subdivision. All lots would not have access to Garner Lane. A stub street be constructed to the west property line to allow for future access to Clayton Lane, and to construct an alley farther north to allow its intersection in the vicinity of the common lot lines of 5 and 6. On December of that year, City Council approved that preliminary plat with the same stipulations. The developer did plat Phase 1 of this subdivision in 1997, consisting of 25 of the 69 lots. The remainder of the property has remained vacant since that time. Preliminary plats, once they approve, expire after they become dormant for more than 2 years. In this case, this project has been dormant for more than 20 years. The dormancy allowed for the Woods at Clayton Place subdivision to be constructed in 2007 without connectivity to the Eastwood subdivision. In order to develop additional phases, the applicant is required to meet city codes for a second point of access. That was a condition of the original approval and current city codes. The alleyway, Tumbleweed Alleyway, as you can see on this preliminary plat, there's in order to, the alleyway constructed, as part of this phase was not intended and does not meet the standards of a secondary fire access or as a second means of primary access for subdivisions with more than 60 lots. An alley is defined as right-of-way not intended to provide the primary means of access to abutting lots, which is used primarily for vehicular access to service the backside of properties otherwise abutting on a street. The subdivision's frontage is very limited, as you can see. The ability to provide a second point of access and meet the distance requirement per the fire code, it's pretty impossible for the developer standpoint. The property is surrounded on all sides, on the north side and not on all sides, but on the north side and on the east side, it is surrounded by city-owned property. On the east side, there is floodway and floodplain, which makes it hard to traverse. And so the applicant is requesting a subdivision waiver to allow for a 61-lot subdivision with a single point of access and to allow for the alley to serve as a second point of access per the fire code. The developer has submitted a plan to develop fewer lots than what was originally approved while trying to make this development feasible. Fire staff, along with engineering staff and planning staff, has reviewed this request and recommends approval of this variance. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Did you say that fire had
Yes,
blessed
sir.
it?
They're the first people I went to.
Thank you, Angela. Is the applicant present, and do you have anything that you would like to add or would like to speak to this request? If so, please come to the microphone. Give your name and address, please.
My name is Travis Crafton. I'm the engineer of record for this project, or hope to be. Address 1201 West Loop 281, Longview. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for being here, Travis. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff or for the applicant at this time?
Are there any UDC requirements for common area?
No, sir, there is not.
I would just like a point of clarification. It's going to be 25 that are already in existence and plus 36 more to make up 61 total. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And Angela, what can go in SF4?
As far as the lot size, 7,500 square feet, 60 wide by 100 deep, which 60 times 100 does not equal 7,500, so one has to be larger than the other.
Any further questions before we open the public hearing? Hearing none, we will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support of this request? If so, please come to the microphone and introduce yourself. Seeing none, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this request? Same procedure. Any additional questions or comments from the commissioners or the staff? If there are none, we will close. Excuse me, do we have a speaker? Okay, certainly. Thank you for being here. We will now close the public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we approve this as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say yes. Yes. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving next to regular agenda item B, Angela will introduce it.
Thank you. This is a public hearing we held to consider application SW21-02 Thornbriar subdivision filed by Kyle Stevens for a subdivision waiver to the the City of Longview UDC requirements, Article E, Section 1, subsection 1.10C, to allow for a 2,248 linear foot dead-end cul-de-sac street instead of the maximum 1,600 linear foot dead-end cul-de-sac street in a single-family subdivision for approximately 47.476 acres of abstract 540V Pedrastro survey located north of Country Club Road and west of Lansing Switch Road. I will go into staff comments. The applicant is requesting a subdivision waiver to allow for a 2,248 dead-end street subdivision. Our subdivision ordinance requires a 1,600 or has a maximum 1,600 linear foot dead-end subdivision. The applicant is proposing a 46 lot subdivision with a private street. This is outside the city limits in our ETJ, but we do regulate subdivision requirements in our ETJ. The tract of land is a very narrow tract of land. It is very deep. The lots within the subdivision are over an acre. They're estate type lots. Staff has reviewed the proposal and does not foresee any issues with this variance request. Through the plating requirements, the applicant will meet all of the City of Longview's other requirements. Staff does recommend approval of this request. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Is 46 lots the total or just the part they're coming for now?
It's total.
That includes the future?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The first phase is 30 lots.
And then, how are we looking at sidewalks in the situation as far as new developments, new subdivisions?
Sidewalks are required, whether they're inside the city limits or in the DTJ. This one, however, was submitted prior to UDC requirements.
Okay.
However, this section of the subdivision ordinance was exactly the same as far as the dead-end street.
Is the applicant present? And if so, do you have anything to add, or would you like to speak on this request?
My name's Trent Tutt, 1410 Judson Road, Longview. I'm the developer, and I'm just here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Tutt. Does the commission have any questions of staff or the applicant on this item?
Michael, what was the thought process behind 1,600 versus whatever? Fire trucks?
Is this on? Okay.
Yeah.
It was a number of things. Some of it is fire department length, dead end length with width. The other part of that is block length. They've accommodated block length, but you want to have connectivity, so you don't want to have just these long dead end streets that put a strain on all of the services without a lot of connectivity. In subdivisions like this where you've got larger lots and more frontage, it kind of, amplifies that. And that's why I think, staff is recommending approval because, if you scale it down to a normal lot size inside the city, you wouldn't have that problem. You would meet the block length and the dead end street length, but it's just the scale of it in the ETJ. But yeah, to answer that question, it's for connectivity, infrastructure, and accessibility either from fire, police, other services.
Trent, who has fire protection out there?
You have West Harrison.
West Harrison? Who has water?
Gill Springs.
Thank you, sir.
When we do phase 2, we are going to have a fire apparatus road. So technically, you only have 23 lots. Yeah, you only have 23 lots. Once phase 2 is done, that would technically be part of the dead end.
Do what, sir?
So when we do phase 2, if you look on the southeast cul-de-sac that's not listed right now,
Yes, sir.
there will be a fire apparatus road
Okay.
that will service half of the 46 lots.
Oh, okay. I see it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions at this point? We will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support of this request? Please come to the microphone. Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Likewise. Commissioners, any additional questions or comments? We will now close the public hearing.
Move for approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Hearing none, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you for your participation. Regular agenda item C. Angela will introduce it.
Thank you. This is a public hearing will be held to consider application S21-01 filed by Harry Chapman requesting a SUP, a specific use permit, to allow for a restaurant with a drive-through window in general retail zoning district for approximately 1.020 acres of abstract 71D Ferguson Survey Tract 81, Section 1, located at the northeast corner of Gilmer Road and Toller Road. The applicant is requesting a specific use permit for a drive-through window. A specific use permit is required for drive-through windows within general retail zoning district to ensure no negative impact on surrounding properties. Staff has requested that a sign be installed at the driveway on Gilmer Road stating no stacking is allowed onto Gilmer Road. Also, an 8-foot solid wood privacy fence was requested to be placed on the shared property line of this property and the adjacent residential property to the west. The applicant has provided these, and they are shown on this site plan. Gilmer Road is a TxDOT roadway and principal arterial. Principal arterials are designed to provide high degree of mobility, service-related high traffic volumes, and have high operational speeds and service a significant portion of through travel. Retail uses are appropriate for this area as long as access management is followed. Through the site plan process, they will comply with all of City of Longview requirements. Staff does recommend approval of this request. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
And one of the questions that came up when I was talking about is the fact that it's heavy traffic. And is it possible to have a red light there? Because you got apartments on the east side of the road, Town Lake, I think Town Lake Apartments, I believe it's over that way. And then you've got the new restaurant, Catfish Village, and or several different things in there, but it's really congested. There's a lot of accidents right in that area. But is it the possibility of the TxDOT requiring a red light?
So TxDOT would not require a red light. Through the site planning process, that's when our engineering staff will look at it and determine whether or not a traffic impact analysis is going to be required, which would tell us whether or not a red light would be required. But this development in itself is too small to require a TIA.
I believe the applicant does have a representative. Would you have comments that you'd like to speak on this request?
I'm Dwayne Myers, architect, representing Harry Chapman this evening. My office is 560 Big Oak Road, Uncertain, Texas. The basic concern was traffic flow. I know you guys have a tremendous traffic flow at the existing Starbucks over there, McCann Road and the Loop.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a new one that's not opened up at Spur 63 and 80.
Mm-hmm.
This one will be coming on board soon. I suspect that will probably mitigate some of the problems you already have at the Loop location. And anyway, we've planned for the stacking of this thing to work on that piece of property. We've also got the property overparked by about 10 spaces based on the requirements that you have for a restaurant.
And what was that? I'm sorry, what was your last statement? We also have,
We're overparked by about 10 spaces
okay,
for a restaurant
Okay.
use on that space.
So there will be inside
There will
seating?
be inside dining also. Yeah, it's, Starbucks has gone through an unusual business model, as everybody has for COVID. Their drive-through business is just really, really increased. And we're doing a lot of drive-through only Starbucks as well as these, but the drive-through is very crucial to their business model right now.
And there'll be access from both Gilmer Road and Toller Road,
Correct.
I can go back to the
and
site.
exit also?
Mhm.
Yeah, you can see the exit onto Toller Road on the south part of this site plan right there. And then entrance off of Gilmer.
Dwayne, explain stacking to those of us who don't know what that word is.
The city of Longview requires, so the drive-through window is the very first car in line next to that adjacent building. And the city of Longview requires at a minimum of 6 cars stacking space between there and the order kiosk. And then behind the order kiosk, the city requires an additional 4 stacking spaces. So for a total of 10 cars in that stack prior to the order window.
But the idea is to keep it from stacking out to Gilmer Road.
Correct.
or Toller.
Yeah.
Toller's not as bad as Gilmer, though.
All right. Mr. Myers, what city did you,
Uncertain?
uncertain, okay. Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for staff or the applicant? Any further questions? Thank you. Hearing none, we will now open the public hearing. If there's anyone that would like to speak in support of this request, this is your opportunity. Come to the microphone and introduce yourself, please. Seeing none, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the request? Same procedure. Seeing none, are there any additional questions or comments by the commissioners, of staff, or the applicant? We have no additional comments. We will close the public hearing and call for the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Those all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Hearing none, it's unanimous approval. Thank you. Regular agenda item D. Angela, will you introduce it, please?
Yes, ma'am. A public hearing will be held to consider application S21-02 filed by Danello Contracting, Inc., requesting a specific use permit to allow for two-family dwellings in general retail zoning districts for lots 3 through 6, block 3776 of Winchester Park, Unit 3, located at 104, 106, 108, and 110 Cherry Lane. The applicant is requesting a specific use permit to allow for duplexes in general retail zoning district. All 4 of these structures are duplexes. They're located in, as you can see on our map, general retail. In the UDC, duplexes are not permitted by right in general retail zoning district. However, they are allowed with SUP or if they request a rezone. The structure and the uses are considered legal non-conforming because they were built prior to the current UDC. However, 106 Cherry Lane was damaged due to fire. When a structure is damaged more than 51% of its total appraised value, the structure must be brought into compliance. Therefore, the applicant is applying for a specific use permit. Staff finds that the proposed SUP is consistent with surrounding uses. If you look here on the aerial map, you can see that this neighborhood is full of duplexes. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Angela. Any questions of staff?
I guess, Angela, how did this come up? When he went to permit?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He pulled a permit and that's where we caught it. Yes, sir.
Okay, he's already underway. Has any part of the permit been issued?
No, sir, not yet.
Okay. Is the applicant present? If so, would you please come to the microphone and introduce yourself and tell us about your project?
Yes, ma'am. Emmett Meredith, Danello Contracting, 1104 Bishops Park, Denton, Texas. And what we've got is part of this building has burned. We did cover the roof on it so that it wouldn't create any further damage. We've had Allstate out. They've decided that it can be repaired as far as they're concerned. And we just like to go in and get our inspections, rebuild it, and get the tenants back in there. I'd be happy to answer any questions you've got.
Well, as a point of order,
Yes, sir.
you've done a little bit more than recover the roof. It's shingled.
Yes, sir.
Shingles were required to be permitted in the city of Longview.
Okay.
And that's why I asked the question if it was underway. That's not necessarily a problem, but we've got the cart before the horse because the work is already underway. I was over there.
What percentage has been completed?
Well, he's completely dried in, so he's ready for windows and mechanical and cover-up. So probably, well, based on this much roof deck, it probably burned over a third of
Yes,
the
sir,
unit.
it's over a third.
Right.
I would say not quite a half. The value is a little over half because that's with our overhead and profit in it.
Right.
And that put it over. But we still lack all of our electrical, sheet rock, windows, all of that.
Well, I'm not picking on you, I'm not being detrimental.
Oh, I
but,
understand.
I mean, that entire neighborhood and the block over next to it is all duplexes, and I can't believe, looking at the map, that we're general retail, but like you said, it's allowable. So, okay.
And so you're asking for 4 lots to be,
Well,
Yes, ma'am. So Mr. Danello and I spoke, and the same property owner owns all 4 lots, so we decided, instead of just doing 1 lot, going ahead and getting a SUP across all 4 of her lots, so that if this were to happen on any of her other properties, they could pull permits to repair it or do, additions or fix it up without having to go back through this process and bring them into compliance. Yes, an SUP would bring them into compliance because as of right now, they're legal non-conforming.
thank you.
And Michael, this is another question just for chagrin, but is there a simple way by law to get those 3 streets conforming to what they really are?
So there's a number of ways to go about that. The city can initiate a rezoning, and we have done that in the past where there's a large area that is non-conforming for whatever reason. And the last one that I can think of was,
Church Street and
yeah, and then.
over there off of Airline.
Yeah, where we had one issue, we got theirs corrected and then kind of went back and looked at it and did some city-initiated rezoning. It's hard to say that we need to do that in every situation, because this is kind of an anomaly. Normally, where you've got duplexes, you've got
Right.
the appropriate zoning. And one of the reasons for the change in the ordinance is not everywhere that you have general retail is necessarily appropriate for duplexes. Even though, the previous approach was anything and everything is appropriate, but not necessarily. Some duplexes are kind of out of place in a retail area. So, that's something that we can look at for this area, knowing that, it is duplexes, it should be duplexes, and how can we correct an issue so that we don't have this in the future, and staff will certainly review that.
Well, I mean, you've got 21 lots besides his, and I would say that would be a good cause, and they're all duplexes, and most of them are well kept. The other question, to your point, and I didn't mean to be strong on you earlier, you had no clue when you got called to put this back together that this was gonna happen.
no, sir, we normally apply for a permit and they say it'll be okay, and we
And
try it in. I'm just
Michael,
sorry
to
about
that
that.
point, if this was done for the 25 lots, he would've gotten a permit and he'd already have them back in, truthfully. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you, folks.
Thank you, sir. We will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in support of this request? Seeing none, anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Are there any additional questions or comments of staff or the applicant? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and call for the motion.
A move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Regular agenda item E. Angela, will you please introduce it?
Yes, ma'am. A public hearing will be held to consider application Z21-04 filed by Roy and John Seymour requesting a rezone from single-family 2 to general retail zoning district for approximately 1.217 acres for part of Lot 8 and 9 L Woolly Tract subdivision located at 109 Magnolia Lane. The applicant is requesting a rezone of 109 Magnolia Lane from general retail, or single family to general retail. The applicant would like to build a leasing office as well as possibly an apartment complex at this location. Magnolia Lane is classified as a local roadway. Office and multifamily development is appropriate along this roadway as long as access management is followed. The properties to the east are zoned general retail, and the properties to the north and west are zoned multifamily. Staff finds that the proposed zoning change is consistent with surrounding uses. Staff recommends approval of this request. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Angela. You have given your staff review, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? And if so, would you like to add or speak on this request?
Good evening. My name is John Seymour, 3203 Crenshaw here in Longview, and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Does the commission have any questions of the applicant or for staff? We will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak on behalf of this request? Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Are there any additional questions or comments by the commissioners? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. A motion has been calling for the motion, please.
Make a motion to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Regular agenda item F.
Thank you. A public hearing will be held to consider application Z21-05 filed by Thomas Holyfield requesting a rezone from multifamily MF2 and MF3 to single-family 6, SF6, for approximately 4.339 acres of lots 7, 7E, 7G, 7H, and 11, New City Block 546, Longview Jordan acreage located 1800 and 1810 Tryon Road. The applicant is requesting a rezone from multifamily to SF6, which is a new zoning category in our UDC, located at 1800 and 1810 Tryon Road. The applicant is proposing to develop a 26-lot single-family subdivision. This portion of Tryon Road is classified as a collector. Collector roads provide collection and distribution of traffic between arterial and local streets. This type of development is appropriate along this roadway as long as access management is followed. Staff finds the proposed zoning change is consistent with surrounding uses. Staff does recommend approval of this request. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Is the applicant present, and do you have anything you'd like to add?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Arun Srinivasan. I'm the engineer on record for this project.
The engineer, is that what you said?
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right, go ahead,
And
please.
the applicant is not here.
Okay.
But I'll take any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you, sir. Give me your name one more time.
Arun Srinivasan,
Would you like to spell that?
ARUNSRINIVASAN.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions of this gentleman?
Do we have a plat yet? No.
Yes, sir. We have a preliminary one. Yes, sir, and it's right here on the screen.
Oh,
Yes, sir. Sorry.
All right. Does the commission have any further questions at this point? Hearing none, we will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support of this request? Seeing none, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the request? Please come to the microphone if so. Are there any additional questions or comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and call for the motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
The second? Thank you, sir. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Regular agenda item G.
Thank
Angela?
you.
Thank
A
you.
public hearing will be held to consider application Z21-06 filed by David Carlisle requesting a rezone from multifamily 2 to single-family 2 zoning district for approximately 5.46 acres of Abstract 258 PP Range Survey, Tract 9, Section 7, and Abstract 177 William Robinson Survey, Tract 64, Section 7, located south of Masters Way and north of Fairway Oaks Lane. And I will move on to my staff report.
Thank you.
The applicant is proposing an additional phase of Champions Ridge subdivision with 24 lots. Currently, half of the proposed development is already zoned single-family 2. The owner is requesting that the other half of the property be rezoned from multifamily to single-family 2 so that the zoning is consistent and to allow for single-family homes. The proposed subdivision is providing sidewalks per the UDC requirements. Streets within this subdivision are private and are not maintained by the city of Longview. The property to the north is zoned SF4. The property to the east, west, and south is zoned SF2. Staff does find that the proposed zoning change is consistent with surrounding uses. Staff recommends approval of this request. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
All the streets in Champions Ridge private,
Yes, sir.
all of them,
Yes, sir.
from Hawkins in?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is the applicant present? And if so, would you like to add any additional comments?
Good evening. I'm Scott Carlisle. I'm David Carlisle's son. I'm an attorney from Marshall, Texas. My address is 400 South Alamo Boulevard in Marshall, Texas. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Many of the things I was going to say she's already covered, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I would tell you that we've been working with Hayes Engineering as well as the Homeowners Association for Champions Ridge. We've kept them abreast of this project. We've kept them up to date on that. I don't think any of them are here. I know there are some people here to object. And we feel like that, as was said, already half of this land that was going to be in this addition to the Champions Ridge subdivision is already single family. And so the project is going to go on one way or the other from our standpoint. We would like to add that other acreage, the 5.46 acres, so that we can do the entire driving range. We feel like that in addition, changing that area, which we frankly did not know was multifamily when we started this project, is protective of the other homeowners in that area. My father is 71, or about to be 71, and not necessarily, who knows how long our family will own this golf course. Future owners, possibly, if this change is not made, could in the future request to build multifamily housing. So we think going on and moving that now is protective both of now and any future owners. And I'll answer any questions that you have.
The current use for that is the driving range of Oak Forest?
Yes, sir. It is the driving range. Our proposal, which we've communicated to the Homeowners Association and to the members of the club, is we're going to move the driving range to a different part of the club. And then we'd like to take that property in, and we develop approximately 24 lots on that area that will be very nice home sites.
Mr. Carlisle, what will be the main entry to this new developed plat there? I recognize, and Angela, I don't have.
Go back to
Yeah.
I'll go back to it.
I see there's two, I guess, on the north end, and then you have one coming in from the south. What is the main entry, or will you be utilizing all three? What is your plan there?
The main plan is, at this point, it's really a two-step process. We have to get this zoning change done, which we're requesting now. Assuming hopefully that is approved, then the next process will be to file an amendment to the declaration of the homeowner subdivision, which allows the declarant, which is my father and his company. The declarant can file an amendment as long as they have the declarant's rights, which he still does. They can file an amendment to that declaration and add property to the subdivision. So what we intend to do is, after the zoning issue is resolved, is to file that declaration, add this property to the existing Champions Ridge subdivision, which would then entitle members or whoever bought a lot in that subdivision as a property owner. They would have right to go up and down that private road that exits out onto Hawkins. So the main road would be I think it's Master's Way, if I remember correctly. The secondary exit is going to be, there's actually a little road right now that we're going to have to do some additional work on. It's a concrete road that's going to be widened that allows people in Champions Ridge right now use that. A lot of them keep their golf carts at home, and they use that to drive over the club, so to speak. Right. So we're going to have a gated secondary entrance there, and that would be the second one that then, I guess, feeds down across the water there and up to Bill Owens, I guess, would be the second entrance.
Are these lot sizes consistent with the current Champions Ridge lot sizes? Do you know that?
Honestly, I can find out and get an answer for you on that. I think that some of them are smaller, some of them, ma'am, you want a good chance to speak? They are all lots that, frankly, there's pent-up demand. We already have multiple developers that are ready to basically purchase out all the lots.
Right. Now, the current homeowners association, the Champions Ridge, it's their responsibilities to maintain all of those private roads currently. But with your idea, it's to, eventually it would be for the HOA to umbrella all of these plus the existing, is that right?
That's correct. Those people or anyone that buys a lot in this addition will have to, per the covenants and restrictions and the declaration, they will have to join the Champions Ridge Homeowners Association, pay dues, be members of that association, and then they have the rights to use the common areas. For instance, there's a pipeline area. There may be some discussion about that. There's a pipeline there that we're going to do a green belt on. There's a proposal to have that area have chipping and putting areas and kind of a practice area that serves as a green belt over where there is a pipeline in that area. But yes, those folks would be part of the Champions Ridge Homeowners Association and join in the obligations to maintain that private road.
If there were a problem with that and you had to use, and I'm just using this as an example, I don't know if this would ever come to fruition, but if for some reason there was some kind of disagreement to where you couldn't merge these two neighborhoods together and you had to use that south entrance that you would approach coming from Bill Owens, Angela, would there be troubles or any issues? Like, that's like a parking lot right now, is that correct?
Yes.
So how would you get that to city standard? Would that be a hard thing to do?
Yes, so they would have to meet city street standards. And so 30 feet is what the proposed access easement looks like to be on these plans. And so if they were to create their own subdivision, they would have to bring the street coming in off of Bill Owens into compliance with current street standards.
And we're well aware. I mean, like I say, we've had multiple conversations with Mr. Bull, as attorney for the Homeowners Association. We've provided them answers to all the questions they've ever asked us. We understand that there's some opposition to this development. We're not naive. We know that.
Sure.
But it's really, to us, in our mind, a two-step process. This first question is just zoning. We still have to get approval for a final plat. There still can be, if there needs to be fights or disagreements over whether or not that subdivision could be added into that existing subdivision, that's a fight for another day. As we see it, this is an issue purely of zoning. I mean, nobody's giving up their right to, at a later stage, challenge the development. This is purely a zoning in which, frankly, it seems like it's cutting off your nose to spite your face. If you have a nice home out there, why would you want to leave multifamily housing on that little piece of the development? It just doesn't seem to make sense to us.
Yeah.
Well, now back, Angela, tell me again the Reader's Digest version, SF4, SF2.
SF2 is 12,000 square foot lots. SF4 is 7,500 square foot lots. SF2 requires 1,400 square foot homes. SF4 only requires 1,200. Now, I know there are deed restrictions out there, and I think their homes are greater in size than what our city minimums are. Our city, they're just minimums. You can always exceed the minimums. You just can't go below the minimums.
Well, the issue that I've seen, Mr. Carlisle, looking at it, if I was one of the Masters Way homeowners
Yes, sir.
facing what you're proposing to do,
Yes, sir.
I would want the house across the street to look like mine.
Yes, sir.
I would not want something smaller out my front window. Does that make sense?
I certainly understand that, yes, sir.
Now, the question is, the way Mr. Hayes has it drawn, does that take your density down if you were to increase the lot sizes to the same as you are to the north and west? And that's a question I can't answer by just looking at it, but
Frankly,
that's,
Yeah, I believe that it would.
did what?
I think you would lose lot
Right.
count if they
Yes.
went a little bit larger.
I mean, it would be, what, 2, maybe, on this many?
No, because you think about,
It's on. Yeah, I can hear you.
okay, sorry about that. I think it would probably change the entire layout, because when you start looking at the easements that they have.
Yes, sir.
And then lot depth, it's probably gonna shift where the streets are to accommodate that, and it may make it to where it's,
Right.
looks different or may not even be feasible. Because you see, your lot depth on both sides with the street, you don't have a lot of wiggle room there.
And then there is a, as Mr. Carlisle stated, there is a pipeline easement. And so.
Yeah, that's there on the south side of Masters Way. You've got that easement there, so, actually developable land to get a street in there and do all of that. I don't know that you can meet, what are the lot depths there?
It looks like they're holding about 93 wide.
You might go, but then you start getting to where your lots are wider.
The lots are about
Then they are.
132 deep.
Deep.
But that's not including the HOA pipeline area.
Along Masters Way, is that a fence?
No.
No, ma'am.
Are those the rears or the front of those
So
lots?
that's gonna be the rear, the front is gonna be along Double Bogey Drive.
Right, so that's the back side of the house, and there is no fence there along Masters Way.
Well, they're not gonna show fences on here, so I'm not sure if they're gonna provide fences or not. This just shows easements, pipelines, and greenbelt area. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any thoughts on that? The
Ma'am,
green belt?
Oh, the greenbelt? Yeah, the greenbelt idea was to, since we were taking the driving range from its current location, I mean, a bunch of that land out there is floodplain land. You can't build on it. So you certainly put a driving range on it, which is a more beneficial use as we see it. I mean, we've told everyone, one of the main reasons we're doing this project is, frankly, is to help the viability of the club. And this project will allow him to pay off the existing debt on the club, which he's committed to putting a lot of that money back into the club. But the Greenbelt area is designed to give these people both a pretty view that they're already there, and then other people would have the ability to walk over, chip, putt, practice. I mean, the club is going to carry the cost of maintaining that Greenbelt area for the home. We're not going to ask the homeowners to mow it and keep it up and keep the greens up. We're going to take care of that. as well.
Okay, Mr. Carlisle, thank you for your comments.
Thank you, ma'am.
We will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support of this request? If so, please come to the microphone. Give us your name and address. This is in support of.
I'm neither support nor opposition. I don't want it to happen, period. But I have.
Well, could I put you then can we just say there was no one that wanted to speak in support and we'll go to the opposition? Is that correct?
Well, I don't want it to be apartment buildings at all.
All right, well, go ahead and introduce yourself and
I'm
speak.
Jamie Swisher. I live on Masters Way, 1001 Masters Way.
Thank you, Jamie.
Let's put this like it is. This building is not to help the club per se. It is to make money. Let's just say what it is. He wants to make money on it. Or he wouldn't take away. It is a driving range, which is a big selling point for a country club. People that bought into this neighborhood bought it to live near a driving range. If you take away the driving range, will he move it? We don't know. He has done nothing that he said he's going to do, so we have no knowledge of that. But, 1,200 square foot homes, backing up to we have 3 homes that directly look, or with proximity of looking over that thing, are 9,000 square feet. Our bare minimum at the moment is 2,500 square feet. I don't think anyone wants to look out their 9,000 square foot home and look at the garage of a 1,200 square foot home. I don't think that 24 houses can be supported there with a flooding issue, with the traffic issue. But the main issue is the HOA, I need to know who owns the street. Because it was 3 years ago, we were told that after he sold his last lot for these subdivisions, that we owned the streets. We pay taxes on the streets, we maintain the streets, we maintain the gates. If we own the streets, how is he gonna have access to it? They say declarant, well, he can just take the streets? I'm not understanding if we're paying for the streets and who owns it? Does he own the streets or do we own the streets? They are private streets. And I guess that would be the issue. Because if we own the streets, he will not have access in that through Champions Ridge and Masters Way. So.
Does anyone have an answer at this point to that question? No?
No. I mean, the applicant, Mr. Carlisle, yeah.
Legal question.
That is,
Start talking
yes.
about.
All right.
Let Michael answer.
Sure, you're welcome to. Well, we'll hold that a moment and we'll get back to that, okay?
I
We
guess
will get an answer.
that's our main question. So, do we want it zoned for apartments? Well, absolutely not. But do we want anything built there? No. But if we own the streets, that's gonna be a problem for him coming in there with all equipment and doing all of that in construction-wise. People bought the house, we're concerned about our property value first and foremost. Many of those people that have built in there, built that for their forever homes, probably their last home, their retirement homes, I just think that him saying that he's doing it to better the club, that's not true. A 1,200 square foot home, 24 of them right there, is to make money quickly and get out, in my opinion. But we need to know who owns the street. That way who can utilize the street legally. And if he doesn't know and I don't know, then why are we paying taxes on it? Because if he owns it, he needs to be paying the taxes on it and maintaining them. The homeowners have been doing it for 3 years. And if we own it, then we should have a say of who uses them.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Robin Goodman, and I live on Oak Forest Country Club Drive, which is the bottom.
Oh, I'm
it's
sorry.
gone.
Are you trying to show your
Yes.
neighborhood? Oak Forest Drive.
Our street is not up to spec. It's a private road. I'm not sure who's supposed to be maintaining it. I don't know who owns it, but nobody is maintaining it. And the gate that he has that goes out right by the by his cart barn is where people come through there all the time and drive up our street from Champions Way. or that neighborhood. And I thought it was just supposed to be for those people to go back and forth to the club or their cart, but that's not what's happening. They're going back and forth on our street, which is full of potholes, hasn't been repaired in years. It's not up to spec for the city. And that's the one that he's talking about increasing in size, which I don't know how he could do that because it backs right up to the businesses on the other side of the street, and then there's our yard. Our yard's on the other side. And I don't know how he plans on doing that. And I don't want the extra traffic on my street that we already have because of the neighborhoods he's already built, with them cutting through the parking lot to go through our street to get out to Bill Owens.
Angela, can you more clearly define which area that is? Is it the Oak Forest Country Club Drive?
So do you live
Yes,
on
ma'am.
Oak Forest
Yeah.
Country Club
Yes,
Drive?
ma'am. Oak Forest Country Club
So,
Drive.
looking back, let me go back to his preliminary plans. So that concrete drive is actually just a golf cart path. Based on these plans, his two public access points.
This gate right here.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the cart barn, and
Yeah.
this is parking
So
lot.
this is, yeah, and this is,
parking lot.
yes, ma'am, and this is a golf cart path. Based on this proposal, people would
Actually,
come.
this is a bigger road. This is the golf cart path right here. This is golf cart path.
Yes,
This is
ma'am.
the road.
Yes, ma'am. But, the people that would drive into the subdivision would come in from Champions Ridge, from Hawkins and Champions Ridge. They wouldn't, this is a golf cart path. This is not an actual street.
Yeah, yes, it's a street. It has a gate for cars to pass through.
But based on this,
This
I-
has a
I'm-
gate right here.
It's a-
Currently
It's a
right here.
driveway, it's a convenience driveway.
Yeah. And it's got a gate right here, and this opens up to the parking lot, and then
I'm
this,
so
they cut through
lost.
this parking lot, and they go to
Oh,
the
okay.
Forest Country Club.
okay.
I mean, drive. That's the street out. So this whole area right here is already using our street.
Oak
So the
Forest
existing-
Country Club Drive
so-
is private?
Yes, sir. And so the existing subdivision is using your street
Yes,
to get to Bill Owens?
yes,
Is that the entrance actually to Bill
yes.
Owens?
That is the main entrance, right? Off of
Yeah.
Bill Owens? Yeah.
But there's
To the golf
seven,
course.
there's 4 houses and 4 townhomes that are on that street, the entrance street.
For our Masters Way, or Champions Ridge, there's a back gate. If we open that gate up, we are in the parking lot of the country club. If you go through.
But they
go
cut
the
through the parking lot and then they go to
her
my
road
street.
Goes there out until, to Bill Owens.
And
Cut across.
he is trying to build all these houses on our driving range, which we all live around a golf course. And I know it's his property, but he's taking away one of the main things that is used by even the kids in Longview. Longview High School, golf, Spring Hill Golf, Pine Tree Golf, they all come there and practice. They do fundraisers out there, and that's what he's trying to take away from us.
Has there been any tentative, relocation of the driving range that
No.
you're familiar with?
There's not any viable place to really put another driving range because it is a floodplain.
Mhm.
Half the time, the backside of the backside of the course is closed down because it's too muddy for them to mow or for us to even get our golf carts back there. So a lot of times they're playing 2 rounds on the front side,
Yeah.
just because it's on a floodplain.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to hear from the Champions Ridge homeowner again, please.
I still have another speaker card. Thank you, Mrs. Goodman. I still have another
She lives in
speaker
there, too. She
card.
might answer. She lives in there as well.
On your deed restrictions,
Yes,
when you purchased and built your home,
yes.
do you require, or do you remember what the minimum square foot requirement is?
3,200 square feet. Or,
Thirty-
I'm sorry, 2,500 square feet is what,
Living?
yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
And all of our lots around that area were $100,000 or close to $100,000 upwards.
Right.
And I was told, I don't know if he can answer more to this, that they were gonna sell these for $40,000, $30,000 to $40,000, which immediately is a downgrade, to what we have previously had right then.
Okay, now, fast forward. How often does the homeowners association meet?
Well, we just had our first meeting in 2 years because of COVID and, we were waiting till that. So we had it the other night, about 4 days ago or 3 days ago.
And what was the mood? Was this
No one
discussed?
wants this. No one wants anything building. We are going to do, it's the consensus that we are going to do everything possible to make that no building happen there.
Even if it were your caliber of homes?
That would be, if it is going to happen, we would like for it to be our caliber of homes or bigger, obviously. You know, if that,
Yeah.
and it is his property if he wants to do, but we certainly don't want anything smaller than our homes there, or to the number of homes that he wants. I just don't think that our community can support that with the drainage situation. I mean, some of these houses would back up and the drainage would just, we have a drainage problem there as it is. It would run off into some of these people's houses. That's where, you know, we have like a gutter there and we have things, but if you put houses there and you're thinking 24 houses, if they each had 2 cars, that's a lot of traffic to put in that little area for one road, in and out.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
I know Mr. Carlisle stated that his group or his camp has been in constant conversation with the current Champions Ridge HOA. Has it been explained to you, or has this been explained to you? Is it possible to have 2 different square footage minimum requirements under the same HOA umbrella? How
We
would
do
that work?
as of now, but it's more. I do believe, like coming in on Champions Ridge, when you come in, those are 4-acre lots.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a certain restriction for those that are more than, I don't live on that road, so I can't speak to how much your square
Right.
footage. Where I live, the rest of them and the other thing are like 1 acre or more lots.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is where the 2,500 square feet come into play.
Okay.
So yes, is there, you know, I understand different phases have different things, but if you're in our HOA, I wouldn't think that you would want smaller homes than what we've already built there now. Like I said, you have 3 9,000 square foot homes. A 1,200 square foot home just doesn't fit in that. And they're just built them. So, and we were told that this was not gonna happen. We were told it was closed, and it was not. So people built under the impression that this would always be a driving range.
Thank you, Mrs. Swisher. Do we have another speaker? Would you please come forward? Thank you.
My name's
Yes, go ahead.
My name's Susie East. I live at 1009 Masters Way. My husband and I were the first people in Masters Way. I live right at the driving range. When I moved into the neighborhood, we actually picked out a lot, and it was one of the lots, originally, it wasn't where I am right now, but it's one of the lots where David Carlisle intends to build. But for some reason, he came back and told us after we got all excited about this lot, and I don't remember exactly the zoning, or for some reason, he came back and told us after we got our hopes up that we would not be able to have that lot. So then we had to choose another lot. And so we picked this lot because it directly faces the driving range. If you'll look, it's 1009 Masters Way. And so we can sit in our front of our house. We have a house with a big porch on it, and we sit on our front porch and we watch the guys on the driving range. And I'm 68, just this year 71, and that's our forever home, and that's what we want to do. That's our forever home. And that's what, we don't want to see homes out there, I'm sorry. But, and I do believe that it just saddens me to think that there will be homes out there with me facing a garage. I don't want to see that.
Ms. Eaton, in that situation where you just brought up that the idea was it was going to stay that way and so forth, did they put that in writing in your HOA or in your deeds or anything that the driving range would stay there?
I mean, we were told by our HOA president at the time 3 years ago that we were told 3 years ago by our HOA president at the time that Carlisle had signed off on everything. We were now in charge of our streets. We were in charge of everything, and he could not build in there. So I think we just assumed that was true. We didn't, I'm assuming there was a piece of paper, there is a piece of paper they just signed. Have been living under the assumption that that's how it's gonna be. People built their homes in the last 3 years under the assumption that that's how it's gonna be. Is it actually in the deed? I can't speak to that.
I lived in an RV for 2 years and 9 months waiting for the home. Because Mr. Carlisle didn't pick the best people to develop that properly.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
I'm so sorry. I lived in an RV for 2 years and 9 months waiting for that home. Not my home, because it's not the most grand house out there. I have a beautiful home, but just for the property and the house to be built. It was slow to be developed. The roads were slow. It was just a very slow property. My house only took about probably 6 months. So it was slow in coming. I've waited a long time, and that's where I want to be. That's what I want to have in front of my house.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. East.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Madam Chairperson, there's been a number of statements, my name is David Carlisle.
Yeah, we would like to hear you. I'm sure we'll have additional questions if you would please come to the microphone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I know y'all been here for a while.
Turn the mic up just a little
Okay.
bit, thank you.
Can you hear me okay now?
A little better.
A little bit. Is this better?
Yes.
There's a number of different questions that have been raised, and I know
David Carlisle.
that all these people are here in good faith as we are, and it's an emotional issue for them. There's some things I just want to make sure that that we have the facts so that y'all, when y'all make your vote, you'll just understand what the situation is. In regards to the minimum square footage, what we are proposing is that we are still the declarant under the subdivision declaration that's been filed. We have the right under that to add additional property to the subdivision, but, and this is the important point, is that the restrictions that are currently in place in terms of minimum square footage and all of that, we don't have the right to alter those. So the minimum square footage requirements for houses, they're not going to be any 1,200 square foot houses. I think the minimum, there's 3 phases that have been done. I think the minimum square foot for any of those phases was 1,800 square feet. But if this zoning change is approved, what would happen next, we would prepare an amendment to add this property, and we would present to the HOA the set of restrictions proposed for phase 4, which this would be, and they would have to approve that. So the issues about minimum square footage on houses and all, that's just not going to happen. That's not the way it will be. That's not the way it can be legally, and that's not the way we're proposing it. The other thing that, in terms of the streets, as my son said, if this is added, then the streets, and their question, the streets are part of the common area. They are owned by the HOA. When we developed the property, though, we guaranteed, that's why we did cement streets. We guaranteed the streets for 5 years. And it'll be the same thing on the streets in phase 4. We will, as a developer, guarantee the streets against any material defaults for 5 years, and then they'll go over to the HOA. But from day one, all of the people in this phase will pay homeowners' dues to pay for that. Now, probably the most, and we will, in terms of driving range, just to say quickly, we will relocate the driving range. So there will be a driving range. We will also have this greenbelt area, so Miss East and the other people that live on that street, when they look across, they won't see as long an area, but they'll actually see probably a prettier area because it'll have sand traps and greens and putting and chipping areas that they'll be looking at. Probably the most important thing I want to tell y'all though, and this is, the lady raised that about the issue of profitability. That is a big deal. I counted up about a year ago 17 golf courses within 90 miles of Longview that had closed. If you look at any information about golf courses over the last 10 years or so, probably 10 golf courses are closing nationwide for every one that opened. I think the last year there was about 180 that closed and less than 10 that opened. It's very difficult to make money running golf courses. We have had a little sunshine, so to speak, through the pandemic because people have come out. But still, I mean, ask anybody that belongs to Pinecrest, they're in it's difficult for golf courses. What doing this would allow us to do, we would be able to retire the mortgage on the club so that the club would be in a strong, stable financial position, which would benefit all of these people because that means the club's going to stay there and it's going to be stable and have funds to operate and make improvements. Without the ability to do this, we're likely looking at the club either closing 9 holes or closing altogether because I'm almost 71. Frankly, my kids don't want me to keep putting money into it. And so we all need to understand, the benefits of being able to do this is that it's going to allow the club to remain and be in a stable position. So I'll answer any other questions if I can.
Any other questions of Mr. Carlisle? From the back of the room? Mrs.
This summer, we got our golf carts repossessed because the bills weren't being paid. There have been multiple things at the club that the bills weren't paid. And he has several liens on him and several lawsuits against him. And we were told, and I don't know if this is true, but if he gets money in his pocket, that we can't be guaranteed that he will actually get the money to do what he's saying he's going to do. So I have no idea if that is what will happen or not. We would like to believe that would be true, but in the years that I've been there, that has not been the case, that when any money gets that it goes back towards the club.
Well, I'm sorry that she'd even say something like that because that's basically untrue. And, people talk, and obviously these people have no way of knowing what we do with our financial resources. The club's in decent shape. We put all the money that we get back into the club. But there's no question that it's a difficult business. And that's why we're saying that we need to be able to retire the mortgage, and improve the cash flow of the club. That's a fact.
Is there a way that you could ensure us or put that in writing that money would in fact go back into the club if it was developed?
We've told the HOA that, and I don't know if they want us to keep discussing it, but I have no problem signing. That's what we're going to do, pay off the mortgage. I'll make that pledge and put it in writing to the HOA or whatever.
Mr. Carlisle, did you have a timeline on the other projects that you were talking about the driving range and so forth?
Moving it?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. We would do it this year once we started on the other. We've already asked a couple of members to kind of look at different spots, and so it would be done by the time that the other driving range is taken out, or within the year, if weather permitting, before it even started.
Okay. Do the commissioners have any additional questions of anyone on speakers'
I
cards?
would like to say one more thing.
Yes, Ms. Goodman.
If any of y'all have ever been out to the club lately, you would see what kind of repairs that they're doing out there. They have done some repairs. I think you probably got some PPP money. But the roof still leaks. The air conditioners don't work all the time. So there's a lot of stuff that needs improvements that are not getting done in the way that they should be done. And I understand how hard it is to run a golf course, because I was one of the part owners with Buddy Woolley before you bought it. So I do understand, it is a money pit.
Excuse me.
But part of the clubs that have closed,
Let me get you to hold that. 'Cause
part of the clubs the golf courses that have closed around this area, many of them were his. Just saying.
Thanks, Mrs. Goodman.
I do have a question of Mr. Carlisle.
Mr. Carlisle, one of our commissioners has a question.
I do have a question. Can you address, there was a question earlier about ingress and egress down Oak Forest Drive. So can you address that?
Yes, ma'am, and that is kind of a murky issue. You know, the road that goes on Bill Owens, which is the drive we're talking about, I think, correct?
I believe that's the, yes, I believe so. Ms. Goodman.
We're not, nobody claims ownership of it, would be the best way to put it. The city, we thought the city owns it. We've asked the city to maintain it. They say they don't own it. The best I can tell in our deed records to the club, we did not get it. But it's been,
But is
well,
that the
we
main-
would be happy, of course, for the people on the street to pay something toward it.
It's the only.
Is that the main entrance to your club?
That is
Always
now.
has been.
That is correct. That is the main entrance. When, if the project is approved, the main entrance would actually be off Champions Ridge, although most people would still come off of, the people that don't live in the subdivision would most likely still come in off Bill Owens.
And so are you envisioning some sort of gate to keep the Champions Ridge people from going out the main entrance, or is it gonna all be open and then people off Bill Owens can come straight through?
Well, there is a gate such that, and there is one now, that if you don't live in Champions Ridge, you don't have, it's a one-way gate.
Got it.
So you don't have access going in. The people that are coming through from Champions Ridge do have access out, but primarily those people just come through there to go to the club. No, they don't. Well. No, they don't. No. The road, if you live over there, I guess depending on where you live, but, you know, if you live out on the main street coming in off of Hawkins, you know, you would just go out Hawkins.
Okay. We're going to need to bring this to some kind of a conclusion. Thank you all for your participation. Are there any additional questions from the commissioners?
Madam Chairman, I believe, based on what I've heard, this has table written all over it.
Then
'Cause
we
I
will
believe-
close the public hearing
Yes.
and we'll call for the motion.
I make a motion that we table this action item.
Do we need to be more specific?
I believe that we've got city questions that need to be answered. I believe we have homeowners association questions that need to be answered. I believe we have developer questions that need to be answered. And I see no sense for us to move forward to the city council if this is not going to be resolved.
I'll second that.
I don't see a resolution that would send this forward in the timetable it's going to take all of these people to get together to make that council meeting for the second hearing. So therefore, I'm not in favor of it moving forward.
Too much uncertainty.
All right, so we have a motion to table the agenda item. Is
And a
there a
second.
second?
I second.
And a second from Mr. Baumgartner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The motion carries. Now, I would ask city staff, what's the next step?
I think from our standpoint. I think from our standpoint is, there was a lot of comments and a lot of questions. Some of those really are not anything to do with the zoning. We're kind of looking for direction. What does the commission want to see? Is there a particular issue over the other? Is it the access? Is it just the fact that they're developing it that we're opposed to? Is it the lot size? Is it the lot number? There's a variety of things that were brought up. And just kind of going through those issues, as Mr. Carlisle stated, zoning is the first step. If you go back to the zoning map, he's asking to zone it to the same thing that's already out there. Actually, SF2, it requires a larger lot and a larger house than all of the other houses that are out there in SF4. So what's currently there zoning-wise allows for much denser development. As it was stated, the deed restrictions, zoning is independent of deed restrictions. And so, there was a question asked about who actually owns the road. And when you start getting into deed restrictions and when a developer relinquishes all of their rights to further develop and to access and all that, that's not a question that I can answer. That's something they'll have to work out. But as he stated, zoning is kind of a broader picture. We had the pre-submission that shows an overall layout, but the zoning does not dictate that that's exactly what it's going to be, so that might be a little misleading. It's not a planned development. It's just for reference purposes. So, the access between the golf course and the development was brought up. That could be handled potentially with a condition on the approval or whatever that says, hey, no, we don't want to have that two-way access. We want to limit it to where it's pick a number for, that would restrict it for, so that it would be only golf cart traffic. That, that private road does have some issues, and, that just gets into a sticky situation. The number of lots and all of that, the zoning is a minimum, but if you compare it to with what's already out there, it's much more than that. Zoning is just that, it's a minimum. Deed restrictions really come in and play the role of a lot of the things that they're asking for, and is really the responsibility of the HOA to work through those issues. So,
And that's one of the I was gonna bring up. I'd like to see him go back to the HOA and work it out through there, and then come back with a recommendation with the HOA being represented here as well as the Carlisle's being represented here, so that we can make an educated decision in the process.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern because, and we all know that we probably wouldn't build that small of a house, but if those houses are ranging 2,500 to 9,000, I just can't see that we don't have harmony coming from the homeowners association and the developer to us to make a decision that's in the best interest of the city. I mean, we could have rubber stamped it and gone right on down, but then all of a sudden now we've got 52 homeowners in the blue that are upset with us, and we're gonna have 23 in the pink that are not gonna like us. So, it just, I just see too many issues. And as to Michael's point is as far as the city's concerned, that egress issue to the south is an issue with life safety, whatever that looks like. So that's my point. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. The next agenda item is a staff update.
Yes, ma'am. At the last council meeting, both rezone requests, one on St. Clair Street and one on McCann, were approved by city council.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Oh, excuse me.
Michael, Angela, thank you immensely for the signs.
Yes.
I've had more positive impact and feedback on those signs. Y'all gonna do what? Look it up and read it.
Yeah, it's great.
They are.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We are adjourned.